Good evening, everybody. Jerry Rasco here, and this is going to be part 2 of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle piece that I started last night. So you can see what we've got here is the character Donatello on purple paper, and I've completed out all of the contour lines on all of the block shading that I wanted to do. And in here, I've used warm Copic markers, warm grays, to add shading to the areas of the brown, tan, those areas to give it a warm color. And now I'm going to just touch up one area real quick, and then I'm going to get into coloring the rest of it with cool gray markers. And my plan with the cool grays is to do everything that would be of the sort of blue green texture on the turtle, so skin, shell, all that kind of stuff, and add the drawing and add the texture there. Then finish up by coming in with the rest of the line work, heavier lines, hatching to blend in some of the shading, and wrap it up with probably a few white highlights here and there. So we're gonna go ahead and get going. So again, thank you everybody who comes by and checks this out either tonight live or via the replay. I'm recording this on a Sunday night, so I know folks are busy and everybody's getting ready to go back to work tomorrow, so it's quite possible we might not have too many visitors tonight, and that is okay. Again, appreciate everybody who watches on the replay. So I'll be using the cool Copic markers, 1 through 7, all the odds, 1, 3, 5, 7, to get all those gray tones that I want to do. So we're going to start with that. And again, my light source is coming from this direction over, so all of the shading is going to be towards the left side of the figure. So I'm going to start up here with the head. So for anybody who missed part 1 last night, this all sort of came about when yesterday I was watching TV with my daughter. She's 4, and so we're constantly perusing the different cartoon channels on TV, and one of the cartoons and the characters that she recognizes pretty readily is the Ninja Turtles, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. She's never read any of the books. She met the Ninja Turtles last year at a comic book convention here in Austin. They had Kevin Eastman was the one of the guests of honor, and so they had people dressed up in costumes that were very reminiscent of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, and she was fascinated by that, and we explained to her that they were superheroes and that they beat up the bad guys, and she was only 3.5 at the time, and boy, she thought it was so cool, and they came over and talked to her, and they gave her high fives, and so she has quite the sweet spot for the Ninja Turtles. She digs the Ninja Turtles. So anyway, we were watching TV. Ninja Turtles came on. She recognized it, and I started looking at it. And it, in the cartoon version, they're always identified by color. That's how you can differentiate them. Donatello has purple. Leonardo has blue. Raphael has red, and Michelangelo has orange. And which makes sense, especially for kids. Makes it very recognizable. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, I've been doing these pieces lately with the colored paper, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I did one of the Ninja Turtles on each piece of colored piece of paper to go along with the color of their bandana and that sort of thing. So anyway, just thought I would give it a go. And anybody who knows me has seen any of the other Ninja Turtle stuff that I do, that I've done in the past. My version of the Ninja Turtles leans very heavily towards the original comic book series, the mini series. I guess the first 4 issues of the regular series, which is black and white, much more adult, very violent, crazy stuff going on. But those designs of the turtles and that look is what I really related to as a kid. Watching, seeing that, and so when I draw the Ninja Turtles, I tend to, again, also lean in that direction where my turtles are a little more that way. So that is why I'm using the gray tones to go ahead and do the shading. So the gray on the paper, on the purple paper, is going to work a little differently than gray on white, but it's still giving me a pretty cool effect. I'm looking forward to see how this goes, and that's one of the fun things about being able to draw and making art part of your life, is you get to do whatever you want, whenever you want. The world that you create on whatever it is, whatever media it is, paper, sculpture, anything you're doing is yours. And so if you want to experiment and try it out, go for it. There's nobody there to tell you what's right or wrong when it comes to what you're trying to create. So anyway, I'm doing a gray tone Ninja Turtle on purple paper. What the heck? Again, all of my shading, this is very, very light. When it dries, some of it's gonna really show, some of it isn't. But from here, I'm going to continue to build up the shading. I'm going to add layers of the cool grays, and what that'll do is that will build up over time, and you'll be able to see as we get going more depth to that. You can kind of see in the areas here. I started with a very, very light, warm gray, and then I moved into darker as I got closer to those real black shaded areas. And that's the same thing that I'm doing here. So now we're going to go with the Cool 3. Let's see what we can do. The Cool 3, it's got a little bit of a limited lifespan, and I think this is the only Cool 3 that I have. So we're going to make it count. Getting with the areas that I want. Let's see how that looks. Okay. And so, like I said, the shading is all on the left-hand side of all the figure, objects, etc. So what I'm doing is I've started the lighter tone further over, and now I'm just working my way to the left as I go darker and darker with the tones. Same thing here. The light is going to be coming from the top down. So I'm just working this. This is the next darker tone. I'm just working it that much closer to the shadowed areas. do that. Let's go in. We'll C5. So it's going to be pretty neat. I'm looking forward to seeing once I get going with, again, both the, from here, this is the first one with the experiment, but I do have, blue paper, red paper, and orange paper for the other turtles. And I'm just kind of interested to see each one is going to be unique because of the way that the gray colors are going to work on the paper. I don't know how it's gonna work and the element that it's gonna bring, but I think it's gonna be pretty cool to see how different each one is from the other ones once we get those done. So looking forward to that. Also got a couple of other pieces that I'm gonna be working on pretty soon. We'll see. I've got some commissions I'm looking forward to working on. I may or may not work on those online here on Periscope as well. So you may get to see some of that too. For anybody who tunes in, I've got a Batman commission that I'm going to be working on. I've got a White Queen from Marvel from the X-Men books, White Queen and the Goblin Queen. So that should be pretty fun to do. And then I am going to be working on a new book. I won't say too much about it yet, but I'm going to be working on a new comic project. Just kind of starting things out. I've got a bunch of character designs that I need to start on, getting a feel for who those characters are. Some of them have already been done, but for the ones that haven't, I need to get my hands on them and get to see how I think about them. What do I want to make them look like? And it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be very dark. It's going to be kind of a sci-fi type of thing, futuristic and with a twist. I won't give away the twist yet, but definitely kind of dark and gritty and that sort of thing. So I'm looking forward to that. So you're going to be able to do some of that work online as well and let everybody see what's going on there, maybe once I start some of those pages. So if you like watching artists and hopefully if you like watching me work, then you'll have some stuff you'll be able to see coming up in the near future. So getting the shell. I don't want to go too dark on the shell. I want to leave a lot of it fairly light because it's going to, I want to use white highlights to kind of make it look shiny because it's very smooth. And then I also want to, it would be catching the most amount of light of the figure because that's, the thing closest to the light source is the shell. So I want to do a lot of shading with it. Definitely some. That brings a lot of depth when you can add that shading. There we go. And get in here in the hand. So hopefully now you can kind of see how that's starting to build up and it's starting to create some layers. Kind of giving you some ideas of how the depth is working and pushing some areas back as shadowed, some areas forward. that type of thing. The leg is pretty heavy shadows. Oops. It's all right. Get a lot of the shading in here. Do want to blend that in to there. Ah, my friend Tony is back. Good to see you, my friend. I hope you had a great weekend, and I know it's a little late on the East Coast, but I appreciate you stopping by. Must have managed to get all the kids to bed. Not that anybody knows Tony. He's got quite the house full of kids these days, so hopefully everybody's sleeping soundly and getting ready for tomorrow. Just 4 of them, yeah. That's 3 more than me, so more power to you, my friend. Whew. All right, let's see. I just realized that I missed a spot last time on the top of the knee pad here, so I want to just get that warm. All right, and now going all the way to C7, which is the darkest cool gray that I have, and that's going to stick pretty close to the shaded areas there. So my real question to my friend Tony Galley, who is watching, is when are you going to do your own Periscope broadcasts? That's the question. Is the purple of the page your lightest value, or will you add white? Excellent question. I will be adding some white highlights. I will be adding white, a very thin white border around the whole thing to help pop the character from the background. I'm going to add the white to the eyes, the teeth, and probably to the shell. And that's probably going to be about it. But yeah, there's definitely going to be some white highlights as well. And it's one of those things where the white highlights, actually, I've seen a lot of artists do it, but I couldn't figure it out. Like, I tried all the tools, and like I said, I think I've said this before, I tried whiteout, I tried paint, I tried different ink pens, paint pens, and I just could not get a clean white of what I was looking for. It would always come out, showing through. I couldn't get a dark enough opacity for the white. And then I saw an artist, and he was using this. This is the Uniball Signo white jelly roll pen. I had to order them online. I got them from jetpens.com, and they are awesome. The ink flows really well. It covers really well. I really, really like them. There's other ones too. I think I have one here. Yeah, these are, I don't know who makes these. Just Jelly Roll. It's, you can see Jelly Roll 08. It's a Japanese pen. These are okay, except it is more of a, see, it's a straight up ballpoint pen. And the problem is, once you go over something, if you push in too hard, you'll get white on the edges of the line. Here, I'll show you, you get white on the edges of the line, but you don't get in the center sometimes. And then if you go back over it, it'll actually start pushing the white ink around, and it's not as helpful. It's not bad for small spots, but the Signa pen is far superior. So can't say enough good things about those. Yeah, so one of these days, I teased it last time, I'm going to do a broadcast where I show everybody where I like to work. I'm going to show you the room that I'm in my house, show you my setup, show you some of my original art that I've collected, things like that. And one of the things that I have, maybe I'll show it at the end of the night here, is an original Star Wars themed piece by my friend Tony Galley. And that's, so when I say he should have his own, he should be doing his own broadcasts, that's why. He is a very talented guy. All right, so going with the darkest value here that I'm going to have. I still have it. I do. I'll show you. Like I said, when I do the tour of my room, I have an area that is my Star Wars area. And I have some figures on the wall. I have that piece of artwork. And I also have a signed autograph from Chewbacca. That's right, Peter Mayhew. I have Peter Mayhew's autograph all on the wall behind me. So I have that area. I've got posters of things that I find inspiring. I've got a wall of original artwork that I've hung up. I should frame one of these days. I have another wall where I have autographs from celebrities I've met. I have a wall of sports and football and things of that. Some old memorabilia, reference books, tons of comics, all the signed comics that I've gotten, plus all the other comics that I have, toys, and my Jim Lee shrine, which I literally is dead set in front of me as I look over the top of my table. I'll show you that too. My Jim Lee shrine. All the stuff I have from him that he signed over the years. So, I've got pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back. So once I've gone ahead and colored everything to where I'm pretty satisfied with the values in place where I want them, I'll go back to one of the lightest values I have, that C1 that I started with, and just kind of go over everything. And being the lightest value, it will actually help to blend all this together. So that way, wherever the edges are between the values, it'll sort of soften those lines up, and I'll have a much more easy transition between the light all the way to the dark. And that's, again, one of the things that you can do with a Copic marker that you can't necessarily do with, say, a Prismacolor marker or pretty much any of the other ones that are on the market. You can't really blend them this way. And as you can see, the tip is drying out, but it's not picking up any of the other color. So I could take this cool gray 1 if I want to, and I could color over other colors with it. There's a number of artists that do that a lot, where what you'll do is Copics come not just in gray and white, but they come in a variety of colors. I've got a purple one here that we'll probably be using later just for the bandana. I've got a brown color. They come in all sorts of shades of the rainbow, but I could put in, let's say, purples. I can do a whole thing of a value of purple, and then come in with this cool gray and sort of add a cool shadow to it. And what that does is, again, it just sort of blends it, but this marker doesn't pick up that purple value, that purple hue. So they're really cool. They're not cheap, but they are also refillable. Both, you can refill the ink and you can replace the tips. So you've got the brush tip and you've got the chisel tip, and both are replaceable. So once you buy them, the key then is to continue to buy the refills and from the ones you use the most, and just refill them instead of buying just all new markers. I'll switch back and forth. This paper is pretty absorbent, so it tends to dry out the tip pretty quick. So we'll just kind of do this. And all right, so far so good. So now, as I mentioned, I have this this purple color. It is a, let's see if that's actually the purple color. Yeah. Yes, it is a pale blackberry. And what I'm going to do is just use it to add a little shading. So this purple of his bandana is going to separate even more and just really stand out from just being, you know, mixing in and being one of the shades of gray. So you'll definitely know it's not his skin. It's not one of the warm colors I use. This is definitely purple. Again, I'm just leaving the color of the paper as a highlight so that if I want to, I can come back in, as we talked about earlier. You bring him to Comic-Con in Burlington. It depends. I may if he doesn't sell when I go to Houston. I'm going to be in Houston, I want to say 2 weeks before I'm in Burlington, Vermont, and I'll have hopefully all 4 of these in my portfolio ready to go, and we'll see. Sometimes it's kind of a shot in the dark. Sometimes there's things that I think like, oh, this is going to sell like hotcakes. Like people are going to look at this and this thing's going to go fast. And then it sits in my portfolio for months and months until I find just the right guy who's like, oh, that's exactly the piece I've been looking for. So I don't know. This may be one of those. We'll see. Part of me hopes that I will have it in Burlington because it'd be fun to show. And part of me hopes that it sells because selling stuff is good. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is come back in with the Pitt pens, the Faber-Castell Pitt pens, and darken up the line work. And that's going to help, again, to separate some of the elements. It's going to tighten up the lines. It's going to clean up anywhere where some of the ink has kind of gone a little outside. I can just thicken up the line and clean that up. So it's going to give it a good overall appearance. And as well, because a lot of folks know, like I said, know about the Ninja Turtles, like my daughter, through cartoons and stuff, the heavier line work, I think, will give it a little bit more of a cartoon kind of feel. So it's kind of funny. I've got a little girl, and she goes back and forth. She likes her superheroes, and then every so often it's just all about princesses, and she'll kind of go back to Wonder Woman, and she likes to remind us that Wonder Woman is a princess. She's a princess superhero, you know. So yeah. So I try to. She knows quite a few characters by sight. Of course, I tend to wear a lot of superhero shirts when I'm just bumming around the house. So she knows Batman and Spider-Man and Superman and Wonder Woman and Captain America and the Hulk. She knows all of them all by sight. Sorry about that. I always forget that I'm working off the page here a little bit. So let me turn my rig so that you can see. There we go. So I'm working down here on the leg. Again, just thickening up that outline, using it to pop out anything that would have kind of a similar value of the grays, you know, shadows, that sort of thing. Okay, let's see. And you'll also forgive me for jumping around. I think I've mentioned that before in another broadcast of just my habit is just to kind of go wherever my attention takes me at the moment. And so sometimes I'm over here and all of a sudden I go, oh, I need to do this line. I just sort of jump over here and jump back over here, but whatever works, right? So let's see. Now, trying to tilt the camera a little for you. There we go. So now I'm working down towards the bottom. Get this front arm to, like I said, to separate from the background, really pop. And that's going to help with this outline. Shoulder up here. All right, so we're almost getting. So yeah, it's I started this. I put about a little over an hour into it yesterday. I've got about a half hour or so into it now, and I'm about to say, but wait, we're just getting to the good part, and it's true. I think a lot of people I know would agree that laying out the initial form, getting those contour lines, even the coloring part of it is okay. But what you're really working towards is the rendering. And what I mean by rendering is when you're adding all those little dashes and lines and textures and hatching and all that stuff is what really makes it unique. Kind of adds the flavor. Everything else up to then is the basics, and when you come in with the heavy, or just not the heavy, but the line work and adding that texture and all the stuff you want to do that you've seen in your head when you first started, that's where like I said, that's where the real flavoring is, if you will. So, tip it back again. And here, let me try this. Let's pan back just a little bit so you can see as much as possible. Thank you for bearing with me. So I think this is definitely better than the first couple I did, where I didn't realize I didn't have a good view of the screen, so I didn't realize how far away the camera was from the artwork. So it was not the most obvious thing in the world to see. So this is, I think, a lot better, even if I had to move it around a little bit. And two, it's the flipping of the camera. Normally, right, everybody uses a cell phone, you turn it horizontal, when you're taking pictures or video or whatever. But Periscope, for some reason, is formatted vertically. And I just don't know why, but it is. So we work within the constraints we're given, right? So I found a way to remount my apparatus so that the phone can be a little closer and be in that vertical format. All right. So now what I've got here is I've got bring it in a little further even. Got the character. I've got all the line work. Theoretically, if I wanted to go ahead and call it quits, this would be certainly a completed piece. There's enough to it there that I would feel comfortable in saying this is done. But I want more. I want to do more with it. Again, that's what I'm talking about with the rendering, and you're going to see what I'm going to do. So the first thing I'll do here is in this, I'll start in the chest area so you can see. I've got these big blobs of black shading. Those are shadows cast by his head and his arm and the plates themselves because the light's coming this way. So what I'm going to do now is take a pen with a much smaller tip, and I'm going to start to just add these little details, which will start to hopefully blend in that shading so that it's not quite a stark transition from shadow to color. Or am I able to zoom in? You can't zoom per se. I literally have to move the camera closer. So I'm going to move it closer and try to tip it a little here. And see if I can do it kind of this way a little bit. The only problem is I don't know if my hand's going to be in the way now, but let's see. Or at least you kind of, what I'll do is I'll give you a view of what I'm doing and then probably pull the camera back out further so you can see. So this is the first thing I'm going to do is add this hatching to the areas, again, where that really dark, bold shadow is. And again, just feathering it into the shadows that I added with the grays. You can see there. Adding it to the forearm here. It's a great place to use the contour of these lines of where I'm adding this to sort of bend around. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Adding the grit, adding the grime, adding those little details. It's not so soft now. Thank you. I'm glad that you dig it. And we're going to go even further. So first, like I said, this is just adding just a softening of the shadows. And trying to do it in the direction of the shading. So in the direction of where the light source, taking that into consideration, and the shape of what is in shadow. So if it's a round object like an arm or muscle, you want to kind of, depending on how long the feathering is, the hatching, you might want to bend it a little bit. Oops, sorry about that. It's gonna, let me get this straightened back out here so it's not bouncing quite so much. Leaning way. Get myself a bit wider base here. There we go. See if this will help. So, okay, let's see here. So yeah, working on the arm. And then when I'm done with this, what I'm going to do is actually go in and start to add some more, not just to blend in the shading, but to then start adding texture. And when I say texture, I mean things like, are there scratches, nicks? Is there little marks, dings, things where there might be little shadows on the tape around the wrist, the tape around the bow staff, the wood grain of the bow staff, just on the chest plate, the shell. So you're going to start to see that in just a few minutes here. And this, by doing this, it just kind of adds a little bit so that the blacks aren't quite, the black shadows aren't quite as just stark as they would be on their own. So we'll kind of do this. Then we'll come down this way. And okay, oops, let me do a little bit here. I don't want to do too much here on the face because I don't want it to look like wrinkles, like in the skin. I want it definitely to make sure that it continues to look like shading and nothing else. Okay, so now as I was talking about, there's these areas here. So, you know, one of the things that the turtles always had, especially in those first few comics, man, their shells took a beating. So, you know, they got cut across the chest. There was blood and nicks and all this kind of stuff. And I always liked that gritty look. So we're gonna add some of those. And basically, all it is it'd be in, you know, the back side of a scratch or something where the light wouldn't be able to hit it. Maybe, let's say, maybe I would come in, if the light was coming this way, from this direction, I would add white on the top of those scratches to help illuminate them. That's where the light source is hitting the top. But in this case, that's not what's happening. The light's coming from the other way. So these are going to stay dark, but I may do that with some of these here. So in fact, I'll start to add some nicks and texture and little dots and all that kind of good jazz to the shells. And that's a perfect place for some white highlights. You can kind of see. I'm not going crazy with it. I'm not trying to overdo it and, you know, I guess 90s style it, if you will, for anybody whose comic fandom goes back to the 90s. There are a lot of lines, a lot of texture and hatching and stuff like that. I loved it. I still do to this day. But it's definitely something that stands out, sets it apart. When you see something, you go, yeah, that's pretty 90s. Is that all that line work? So I don't want to go too crazy with it. Less is more and becomes more effective. Okay, and then I'm going to do, even though there isn't a heavy black shadow on the bottom of the elbow pad there, I still want to do some hatching. That gives it an idea that there is a little bit of a texture, and that texture is affected by the shading, by the light source. So I'm going to do this. And this one. It's kind of interesting too. So I'm kind of going back and forth between looking at it in person and looking at it through the screen, and it's actually it's much brighter as I look at it through the screen. When I look at it in person, the purple is darker, the shading is darker. There's certain areas where I can't even see the hatching that I've put in here in person, but when I look at it through the screen, I guess it must amplify the light, but I can see it. It's much more clear, and I'm like, oh yeah, there we go. That's looking pretty good. So I'm kind of dipping back and forth between that. All right, and I mentioned that the tape, I like to do kind of some details around the edge, like it's a little frayed. I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's supposed to, like doing the wrists area now. Here we go. I always just assumed that it was like tape. You know how like athletes will tape their wrists or tape, their fingers and things like that. And I don't know, for some reason, this always read as tape to me. I guess it could be like leather or some kind of cloth would probably make more sense, but I don't know. I always just pictured for some reason they would just kind of go, get ready and tape up their wrists. I don't know. Maybe it's, I'm insane. I don't know. The wood grain. So I was doing a commission. I was doing a sketch at a show recently, and there was a younger guy. The old live action movies made it look like material, maybe leather. Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing, is maybe it is. I don't know. For some reason, like I said, maybe it's from the sports background I have. I just always thought of it was tape. Anyway, this guy was watching me work and working on a commission, and I was doing something with hair, doing a character with a lot of hair. And the question he asked, and the reason I bring it up is because it kind of applies with what I'm doing with the wood grain here, he was like, how do you know when to put the lines? Like, why do you choose to draw some lines and not other lines, and stop and that sort of thing? And so the answer to that is about observation. So you look at somebody's hair. Look at what it looks like. You don't, from a distance, you don't see every single strand of individual hair. Your eyes just can't see that kind of detail unless you're inches away from them. So what happens is your brain reads that as a shape, and it just kind of puts it into a shape. And then within that shape, there's highlights and shadows, and that's why you draw, some lines, that's a shadow under a piece of hair, basically, and other lines you leave blank. Same thing with the wood grain. If you look at something that has a wood grain to it, look at a broom handle or a dowel or just whatever, and you look at that grain, if this thing is 20 feet away from you, you won't see any grain to it. It'll be just a smooth, color. The closer you get, the more and more grain you see. So this isn't so close. This isn't like up here where you're going to see every little line of the wood grain, but you're going to start to see some. So what I'm doing is just picking and choosing where I want the lines to give it kind of a natural random element to it. But that's why you pick and you draw some lines and not other lines. And like I said, that applies for pretty much anything like that that you see in nature. Leaves on trees is another good one. We don't look at trees and see all the individual leaves from a distance. We just see the shape that the clumps of leaves make. So you kind of draw leaves in little clumps, and that'll make a tree. I said wood, water. We don't see every wave on the water. We kind of blur it out, that sort of stuff. And it all comes from observation. The important thing is that you actually have to look at these things and think about it. So, yes, I have looked at handles, broom handles, and dowels and sticks, and looked and said, how much exactly wood grain can I see? And that's because I am really, really nerdy. But as a lesson for young artists, that's my point, is observe. Observe what's around you. Not just necessarily even draw it, but just observe it. There's too many people that rely on symbols. Instead of drawing a tree, they draw a symbol for a tree. They don't actually look and see, what is the shape? What do the leaves look like? What do the branches look like? How do they work? And that's a big deal. So, okay. Background. So I've got, for me, this is where I'm feeling pretty good about the character. I've got texture on these areas. I don't want to do a lot of texture on the skin. Again, it either makes it look like he's wrinkled, or I could do a texture would look like scratches and cuts and things like that. If this was that sort of piece, then that's what I would do. But I'm pretty happy right now with the mix as far as the texture and the smooth. And so what I want to do now is take something else that's different, and I'm going to take, in this case, a neutral gray. So I've been working with warm gray, cool gray, and now this is neutral gray. And what I want to do is just kind of go around here. I'll start up here, around the character, and kind of just dab in some color. I don't want to do a whole solid piece. I'm not looking to color in the whole thing. I'm basically just trying to create a background shadow, if you will, that again will help the character pop out. So you see this color, and especially once it dries, you'll see this color isn't going to be like any of the other colors I used. It's going to look different. So that's going to separate the background. It's going to be slightly darker than the other purple, and that's going to push it back as well. So all this stuff that I've left, just the color of the paper, is all going to come forward, and then anything that's here is going to go back. And that's all I'm looking to accomplish. And I like to use the brush tip of the pen to give me kind of a geometric shape. And what I mean by that is I don't want a perfect square. I don't want a perfect circle behind them. I don't, nothing like that. I just want a pretty organic shape So I'm just sort of dabbing in that color. And by doing it in dabs like that, I'm not going to get a real, hopefully, obvious, boring pattern out of it. And you can see I'm not going up really tight to the character. I don't need to, because I know I'm going to come back in, and like I said, I'm going to add that white border around the character. So I don't need to get super close. If I do, great. If I don't, that's okay too. So then as I get further away, I'm adding less of the color to sort of then fade it out. Because again, like I said, I'm not looking to solidly fill in the entire background. I just want to do something to kind of help separate character from background. And this is a good thing to try if you are looking to do a piece where you're drawing and maybe you're stuck. You're like, I don't really know what kind of background to be in. Is he supposed to be fighting in a city? Is he supposed to be fighting in a warehouse, in the sewers, and whatever? If it's part of a story and you're telling a story, then draw that background. You absolutely need to. It sets the tone, it sets the place. Background is critical. But like, this is just the character. The focus is on the character. The focus is not about what's happening in the story. That's for the viewer to now create in their mind what's the story. Why is he standing here looking like he's ready to fight? What's going on? But I'm not telling that story. I'm just trying to illustrate the character for people who like the character. So doing a neutral background with a color, and you could do this with any color. I didn't have to use a gray. I could have used a different tone of purple. I could have used blue. I could have used green, whatever I wanted. And it would have been influenced by the purple paper that I'm putting the ink on. But I thought, in keeping with the theme of pretty much, except for this purple tone here, going with grays, I thought using the neutral gray would make a lot of sense. So let me just see if I can, now that we're pretty good with the figure work. Let me pull back a little further here and just turn you. There we go. So the reason I'm moving the camera and not moving the paper is because I like to work. You can't really tell here, but again, at this time, at some point you'll see I'm working on a drafting table, and so I have this at a pretty upright angle, which means you can't see it. It's Scotch tape. There's actually a piece of tape across the top holding it in place, one in each corner. So I can't really move the paper around for the camera. I have to move the camera in relation to the paper. So I apologize for that. For anybody who has motion sickness, sorry. Don't work on your phone. That's no good. Let's see here. All right. So again, we're wrapping up, and I'm going to finish this. Let's see. Could you watercolor the background? Are the markers all permanent, or would things bleed? So, great question, Tony. I have done a mixture of watercolor washes on backgrounds. The only problem that I found, most of the time I work on Bristol board. And the Bristol board I work on is like, I'll show you an example here. This is actually a piece of paper that I would draw a comic book on. You can see it's got these light blue areas that are already lined out. It's got measurements for me. It's 11 by 17, so it's already to the right size. It is considered heavy duty. It is a smooth Bristol board. I'm trying to see if it says, I don't think it says the weight of it, but you kind of see maybe here, give you an idea of how thick it is. Like, you can see it's a fairly thick piece of paper. So even when I'm working with Bristol board and I try to watercolor, it will buckle like crazy. And I don't know if it's just because I'm a little too overzealous with the water in my watercolor technique or not. I don't know, but I have yet to be able to get paper that won't buckle. The last piece that I did that had a watercolor background to it, I had to use matte board, and even that, it buckled a little bit, but with a little putting a little weight on it, I was able to straighten it back out. So with this kind of paper, this is just plain old cardstock. I would be more worried. Sean, what's going on, brother? Glad you like it, man. Glad you jumped on. Yeah, as I was saying, with this kind of cardstock, oh my goodness, I'm sure that it would just turn to mush. Might be a question for Jim Lee the next time I see him. Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to talk to Jim Lee about the next time I see him. I'm going to be like, Jim, tell me your watercolor secrets. What do you do? What kind of water do you use? Do you use natural water, spring water? You know, what's your plan? No, but it is a cool look, and I have done it on a few pieces. I really like it, but again, I'm more concerned. I don't really have a problem with the markers. The Copics are all alcohol based. The Pigma colors are permanent India ink. So realistically, unless you really start, with a watercolor, soak it or scrub it with your brush, they're pretty much going to stay okay. You're not going to get tons of bleeding. I'm more worried about the paper and the integrity of the paper when it comes to watercolor. Not much, just gonna huge help. Well, hey, thanks. I'm glad Sean just said that he likes the marker work and the tips on that. I appreciate it, man. Then you know me. You've seen me at a bunch of shows, man. I like working. I like talking to people, explaining what I do, and that's because I myself had to sort of learn the hard way. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't necessarily have somebody who was giving me, here, try this material, try these tips, try this marker, try this brush, whatever it is. I almost found all of it online myself through videos, YouTube videos, watching people work at shows, but mostly just research on my own. So if I can share with somebody and help cut the learning curve down in terms of what materials to use, which ones work best, how to work, on colored paper versus white paper, the way the markers work best, whatever I can do to make somebody's life a little easier and again, speed up that learning curve. That's what I'm all about, I was like, Tony had a mentor, huh? I guess he was a pretty lucky guy. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe his mentor just steered him wrong. Terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. Hey, Sean, I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's very generous of you to say. King New, thanks for joining at the show, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for dropping by and checking it out. I'm working on now the background element, and again, just sort of doing a neutral, like I'm trying to do a neutral organic kind of shadow in the background. And then what I'm going to do is finish it up with the white highlights. And then this puppy will be a wrap. And then, like I said, the next few things I've got to work on that maybe we'll see. I'll let everybody see. I've got a Batman commission that I'm working on, that I will be working on. I've got a couple of queens, the White Queen and the Goblin Queen from the X-Men universe. So if you're not familiar with those characters, Google them. You'll find out pretty quick. I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for stopping to the show and checking it out and seeing it. I really appreciate everybody who supports me, whether it's just give me a shout out, a hi, how you doing? It lets me know that there's the reason I'm doing this. So thank you very much. So I was saying, I have a Batman commission I'm going to be working on. I've got the White Queen and Goblin Queen piece that I'm going to be working on for next month, and then I'm also going to be starting work on a new comic. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not going to give, like I said, too many secrets away. It's not, I didn't write it. It's not my book, but I was brought in to do the artwork for it. So I'm going to be starting drawing that, working on some character designs, and getting a feel for all of that, and then jumping into the sequentials. So that'll be pretty cool. And then and a few more shows. I'll be doing conventions in Houston, in Vermont, in College Station here in Texas, and in Oklahoma City through the rest of the year. So it's pretty full plate. So that'll be cool. It's just good. It's good to be busy, right? Let's see. Do a little bit. Just a little bit over here. Okay, so now comes, as I mentioned, any new sketchbooks coming out for shows. It's a good question, Sean. I go back and forth with it. Like, I've done sketchbooks in the past where I take some of the artwork that I've done for my prints and just reproduced it in a small book, and then had that book, available. They do okay. If I was going to do a sketchbook, I think I'd like to do something that's really more, I don't know, I guess more sketchy, like this maybe, something like that, to show people, like, not just here's what the finished piece is, or here's what the computer colored piece looks like. I just haven't ever put together enough stuff to fill a book. The other thing is, I don't know. I don't know. So the answer is I don't know. I've thought about it, and I go back and forth on, do I want to do it? Do I not want to do it? I guess if there was either enough interest, or I had enough work that I thought would really warrant a sketchbook. I think what I'd love to do, I think my dream would be to do my own comic, and then do a sketchbook of kind of all the preliminaries and the character designs and that went along with that comic book. I think for me that would be the most exciting way to do a sketchbook, as opposed to maybe just a book of collected drawings of other people's characters. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe something like that'll come up someday. All right. So you can see real quick, I've just barely started to add the white, the Adventures of Doc Boy and Crime Knight. Maybe the, you know what? On the first two sketchbooks that I ever did, man, these go back a ways. Both of them featured the character that my friend Tony here and I used to joke around about, of Crime Knight. So maybe at some point I'll show those. I have copies of both that I've saved. But I used that character on the cover because I didn't want to use a trademarked character. So I used that one. I used the Crime Knight character that Tony and I came up with years and years and years ago. So you can see how impactful this white can be, and how smooth the ink comes out. You did an homage to Amazing Fantasy 15. I did, exactly. I did the cover was an homage to Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, and I had this character that we had created, and it was cool. And then the second one I did is just the character against a cityscape. I kept it a little more simple, but it was fun. So I still have a few of those left. I've sold most of them, I think, by now. I've got a few left here and there. One of the things, for anybody who hasn't seen them, These sketchbooks, they include, just a collection of a bunch of different characters that I've drawn over the years. And when you buy one of them from me, on the back cover is blank. It's just a blank a white area with a black border. And when you buy one, you get to pick any character you want, and I do a head sketch of that character on the back for you. So they've been pretty popular the last year or so at the conventions that I've been doing, which is good. So maybe when those are all gone, it'll be time to think about a new one. We'll see. Included a really great Batman. Well, thank you. That's quite generous of you. That first one, geez, I don't even remember. I haven't seen the very first one. I don't think I have any copies left other than the one I kept for myself. So I'm trying to remember the Batman piece that was in it. I had the first one I did. I alternated between color pieces and black and white pieces. And in fact, that first one, I did a piece knowing it was going to be black and white of the original 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it came out really well. They had a pretty good response. So I turned it into a print that I think I still have a copy of somewhere, maybe. We're going to see if I can grab it real quick. But that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle drawing that was that was done specifically for my first sketchbook as a black and white piece, because I alternated between black and white and color pages, has become far and away the biggest selling piece of artwork that I've ever done. People still pick it up to this day, which I think is hilarious, and very touching, and very generous. So let's see, we've got the outline, we've got the eyes. So like I said, you can see this pen has a really nice, thick, opaque white that I really like. The teeth. Try to do it without putting my hand. The lefty problems. All right, got the teeth. And then, like I said, I want to do some of the highlights in here on the shell where these scratches and nicks and stuff are. Since the light source is coming from this direction, do that. Same thing here. And, oh man. So now I gotta fix that. Where my hand dragged through. Wrestle. Again, lefty problems. But fixable. Let's see here. Yeah, not quite as much of a problem if you're working on white paper, but these things happen. No worries. All right. And then last but not least, let me see. What have I got for... Got a cool pen to sign it with. Ooh, here we go. How about silver? How about I sign in silver? That'll work. So, let's see here. I tend to give a mark, kind of a smaller. I tend to go down towards the bottom, which is just a little symbol that I came up with 100 million years ago. And then what I'll do is a quick little here. I do one of those. So there we go. All done. Purple Donatello from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so next it's going to be the other guys. So I've got, as I showed yesterday, I've got the red for Raphael, the orange for Michelangelo, and the blue for Leonardo. So we're going to see what happens. It'd be interesting, like I said, to see how those gray tones play off on that compared to everything else. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to give those a shot. So as I mentioned, let me see again, I apologize to anybody who has motion sickness. I'm going to take the camera out of the hold here, out of the clip, because I want to show you, as I mentioned, this fantastic Star Wars piece. Yes, so this Star Wars piece came from my friend Tony Galley, and it's a caricature sort of idea of all of the people we knew as characters from Star Wars, including him and myself. And it hangs in a frame behind me as I draw with all of my Star Wars figures, my Chewbacca autograph, and then I'll give you a quick, we'll do the quick tour. This is the posters that I've got to be to the left of me as I'm working. So I've got this Jim Lee Magneto I've had forever, which is phenomenal. I put up stuff that inspires me and artists that inspire me. So I've got Joe Quesada, some Ed McGuinness Deadpool, Ed McGuinness Rocks. I've got the Jim Lee swimsuit poster, which again in the 90s was so awesome. I have had these posters forever. I've literally had these posters, some of these posters since like junior high. This X-Men one, Art Adams is amazing, and this is directly to my left. It is constantly inspiring me. I love it so much. It's so good. I've got a bunch of little posters over here. Again, some Dave Finch, some Jim Lee, some stuff like that. And then we'll swing around. This is my, as I mentioned, the sports. There's a closet with some junk in it. Sports areas from where I played football. My Steelers, because Steelers rock. My area of autographs, which I have a couple I have to put up. But you can see I've got, I'm still in love with Jim Lee Rogue. That's awesome. I just had a request to draw last weekend the Rogue in that costume. I had the woman who voiced the Baroness sign that autograph for me. Patrick Stewart to God, why am I blanking on his name? Yes, Jonathan Frakes, which somebody I know has a matching autograph. Brent Spiner, Data, John Wesley Shipp, the Flash. One of the newer ones we got, Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead. Awesome. Some references, down at the bottom there, we've got some reference books, just some old memorabilia and figures and stuff like that. Right over here, these comics here are all signed. I've got books in here from folks like, let's see, Humberto Ramos, Olivia Copiel, I don't know, Oliver Copiel, Olivia Copiel, Rob Liefeld doing Captain America, J. Scott Campbell, you name it. So I got a bunch of those. And then over here, some of the original artwork that I have from folks. I know Tony had asked about Whilce Portacio. This is my Whilce Portacio Bishop sketch that he did for me, which was just amazing. I've got a couple of Rob Liefeld Youngblood sketches. My man Adelso Corona did the Captain Britain for me. A bunch of the stuff I have here, the Captain America versus U.S. Agent, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Colossus, those are all, and the Spider-Woman over there, all from Marat Michaels, who's my good friend. This is an X-Men piece. Yeah, the Black Spidey here is from Marat Michaels. He did an amazing job on that. Shelby Robertson did this X-Men piece, and then he also did this X Factor piece for me recently, which is just super cool. And then I've got, this is an original penciled Deadpool page that I got from Rob. This is an inked page from Deadpool Core that I got from Adelso. I mentioned the books. There's one of the sketchbooks that I have. So this is the second sketchbook that I did in the cover. And that character is called Crime Knight. And then this was the very first sequential comic that I actually drew myself, start to finish. Sniper and Rook I did for a friend of mine. That was the second book that I did completely. And then all the way over here, the shadows, is this one. This is the first sketchbook that I did. We talked about it's the homage to Amazing Fantasy 15 with the character. I know it's kind of dark. Over here, starting at the top, focus. I've got my, let's see, come on, get into focus. There we go. I've got Transformers. Transformers are a big passion of mine. I've got boxes, original boxes from my Transformers collection. My Thor hammer, someone made for me. A couple of football helmets that I wore when I played football. I've got my comic books. These are all in alphabetical numerical order because I'm that guy. And then comes over here to, yeah, over here starts of my Wizard magazine collection at the top there. Comes down to here, and then here I've got all of my trade paperbacks, graphic novels, that sort of stuff here. So you can see those. I've got some omnibuses, some DVDs. I've got the Transformers. So this is my Prime collection. I dig the Optimus Prime is super cool. And then here, last but not least, is my Jim Lee collection, my Jim Lee Shrine. So what you're seeing here is the hardcover X-Men Mutant Genesis. So what this was the first 4 issues of the X-Men book that he did, and it's all completely redone, with computer colors, as opposed to the old hand colors. I've got an issue of Justice League #1, he signed. I've got his autograph on a placard from a panel that he did at New York Comic Con. I've got, this is just a bunch of Jim Lee work from his Wildstorm days. And you can see he signed that. I've got my Wildcats. This is the trade of the mini-series that led into the regular series from back in the early 90s. He signed that. I've got my X-Men omnibus that he signed there. And then, of course, this is, I'll show you the cover. See if we can see it. This is the Hush Unwrapped. So the whole thing is the Batman Hush story, but it's all pencils. It's not the inked pages. It has all the word balloons and everything on top of the penciled pages. And then, of course, here we have the best part, my Batman head sketch inside my Hush hardcover collection for me, personalized to me. So that is the bomb. That is my collection, my Gimli shrine. It is what I look at as I'm working. That keeps me inspired and keeps me going. So there we go. With that, I'm going to call it a night. How'd I score that? It's a long story. He was, I'll give you the condensed version. He was at a show, I want to say it was Amazing Arizona show, maybe 2 years ago now. And he was, if you wanted to get him to draw and sign stuff, there was a VIP signing. And you had to pay extra to get in and all that. And I didn't, because typically I don't have time to do that kind of stuff at shows. And there was a couple, these two people who were at the show. They had the VIPs, and they were great. They came over. They bought a lot of stuff from me. We kind of, connected, and everything was really cool. And they had to leave the show on Saturday. They weren't going to come back on Sunday. So I basically made a quick deal with them and said, what's it going to take for you to leave your VIP badge with me so I can use it on Sunday to get this stuff signed? All this stuff was signed on that one day, except for the autograph, and get a sketch if I go into the VIP signing on Sunday. And so I traded them some artwork that I already had and a custom piece I drew for the badge, and I got to go in and get my Jim Lee picture. Get me a Jim Lee drawing. So that's how I scored that up. So pretty wheeling and dealing. So that being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for enjoying the quick tour of the studio and the space and all my junk and my toys and my books and all that stuff. So I will sign off. Thank you very much. I'll be coming on with more Periscopes pretty soon, I hope, with these other things, and go from there. So again, thank you all for watching. Enjoy the replay, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Good night.